The Galactic Empire stretched across thousands of worlds. Its fleets shone like silver storms. Its soldiers followed orders without question, and its rulers believed no race could ever stand equal to them. For centuries they had conquered, colonized, and controlled without fear. To the Empire, all other species were only small sparks under their burning sun. But one day, something new appeared at the edge of Imperial space. Admiral Karath, commander of the 7th Expansion Fleet, stood on the bridge of his flagship, Varna's Glory. Before him floated the stars, calm and endless until sensors caught movement. A strange cluster of ships had arrived in the neutral zone. Ships that did not match any known design. "Unknown vessels, Admiral," reported the sensor officer. "Their configuration is odd. Metal hulls, crude shapes, no energy signatures similar to ours. They're not using plasma cores or phase drives." Karath's scaled brow furrowed. "Show me." On the main screen, a formation of ships appeared, bulky, uneven, but steady. The ships were gray with streaks of blue light and strange markings that looked like written symbols rather than code. Compared to the elegant, needle-like Imperial cruisers, these ships looked ancient. "Where did they come from?" Karath asked. "No record, sir. Their approach vector suggests they entered through an uncharted rift point." Karath leaned closer to the display. "Crude or not, they are bold to enter our territory. Hail them?" The communication officer tried several standard galactic frequencies. For a long moment, there was only static. Then a voice crackled through, rough, deep, and strange. "This is Captain Aaron Wells of the United Human Confederation. We come in peace, but we are prepared to defend ourselves." The entire bridge went silent. "Human," Karath repeated. "We have no record of such a species." "No, sir," replied the analyst. "They're not in any archive. This must be a new civilization." Karath smiled faintly, the way a predator might smile at a smaller creature. "Then we shall welcome them to the Empire's borders. Properly." He gave the order for a warning formation. Imperial cruisers moved like blades, surrounding the human fleet in a crescent of shimmering light. But the humans didn't retreat. Instead, they stayed in position. One of their ships even turned slightly, as if waving. "Admiral, their captain is requesting open communication again," said the Comms officer. "Put him through." The screen flickered. A human face appeared, a man with short brown hair, tired eyes, and a slight grin. "Greetings, Admiral," said Captain Wells. "Your ships look impressive. Ours aren't as pretty, but they get the job done." Karath studied the man. "You are in Imperial space. You will surrender your vessels and submit for inspection. Unauthorized species cannot travel freely within our domain." Wells laughed. Actually laughed. The sound echoed across the bridge, light and easy. "That's quite an introduction. Do you always start diplomatic talks with threats?" Karath's eyes narrowed. "You mock the Empire?" "Not at all," Wells replied calmly. "But where I come from, laughter is how we handle tension. You seem a little too serious." The bridge crew exchanged confused glances. No one had ever spoken to an Imperial admiral that way before. Karath leaned forward. "Captain Wells, this is not a game. You are facing a fleet capable of destroying planets. I advise you to cooperate." Wells tilted his head. "Destroy planets? That's not very nice. Look, Admiral, we didn't come here to fight. Our explorers found a strange energy signal near your border. We're just here to study it. We didn't even know there was an empire here." "Impossible," Karath muttered. "Every sector for 10,000 light-years is under Imperial record." Wells shrugged. "Well, seems your record missed us. Humans come from another spiral arm, a few million light-years away. Long trip, I know. But hey, the view's worth it." The bridge fell silent again. The translator confirmed every word. The man was serious, or at least he sounded serious between his jokes. Karath's voice lowered. "You claim to have crossed millions of light-years? In those scrap metal ships?" Wells smiled wider. "Scrap metal? That's harsh. These ships might not look fancy, but they've survived worse storms than your scanners can imagine." "Arrogance," Karath hissed softly. "We will see what your primitive vessels can do once we inspect them." But before he could give another order, a soft alarm chimed. "Admiral," said the science officer, "the human ships are emitting laughter signals." "What?" "Yes, sir. Audio transmissions, hundreds of them. Different voices repeating and echoing. It seems their entire fleet is laughing." The bridge crew stared in disbelief as the sound filled their speakers. The sound of human laughter, bright and ridiculous. Karath clenched his claws. "What is the meaning of this mockery?" Wells's voice came through again. Sorry, Admiral, our crew's just having a moment. You said something about inspection. That's cute. We don't usually invite strangers to poke around our ships. Trade, maybe. A drink? Sure, but inspection? That's a bit personal. Karath couldn't understand it. Every species the Empire had met either trembled or obeyed. None had ever dared to joke, much less laugh, in the face of Imperial power. Captain Wells, Karath said coldly, your behavior is unacceptable. I demand you cease this nonsense, or what? Wells interrupted, still smiling. You'll shoot us? You don't even know what kind of energy we use. Maybe your weapons won't even scratch us. It wasn't said with anger, just calm amusement, as if the man truly believed it. Karath's hand hovered over the command panel. You test my patience, Wells replied. No, Admiral, we test your curiosity. Don't you want to know who we are? How we got here? You could fire and start a war, or you could talk. I promise, we tell better stories than we fight wars. Karath hesitated. No one had ever spoken to him this way. The human's words were strange, not threats, not fear, just something else. Confidence, humor? Both, perhaps. He decided to stall. Fine, speak. What is your purpose in this region? To learn, said Wells, and maybe to share. We humans have a saying. Every meeting starts better with a smile. You might want to try it sometime. Karath gave no reply. But deep inside, a question had formed. A question no Imperial Admiral had asked in centuries. What if they were telling the truth? Still, he could not show doubt. Very well, Captain Wells, you and your humans will remain under observation while I report to High Command. Any movement from your fleet will be considered hostile. Wells gave a friendly salute. Understood, Admiral, serious face. We'll just stay here and enjoy the view. The channel cut. Silence filled the bridge. Karath turned slowly toward his crew, who avoided his gaze. Begin full analysis of their ships. I want every detail. Propulsion, energy source, and weapon systems. Yes, sir. As data poured in, the officers began to whisper. Their drives are strange, one said. No known energy core, another added. Their hulls show scars from radiation we've never seen. They must have traveled through unstable space. Karath frowned. How can such primitive designs survive that? Unknown, sir. Hours passed. Reports came and confusion grew. The humans were a mystery wrapped in laughter and metal. They broke every rule of galactic logic, and yet, somewhere deep in his thoughts, Karath felt something he had never felt before. Not fear, but curiosity mixed with a strange amusement. He found himself replaying the sound of the humans' laughter in his mind. It was warm, foolish, and fearless. Humans, he whispered to himself. We shall see what kind of creatures you truly are. Outside among the stars, the human ships drifted peacefully, lights blinking like playful eyes. For the first time in Imperial history, the Empire had met an enemy who laughed instead of bowed. And that laughter, echoing across the dark, felt far more powerful than any weapon. The Galactic Empire had seen countless new species, but never one that made its admirals so confused. The humans were not strong in appearance, not fast, not even equipped with advanced technology. Their ships looked like relics, their communication style was casual, and yet they laughed, and that laughter echoed across the Empire's halls. Admiral Karath stood before the Grand Council in the vast chamber of the Imperial Citadel. Golden walls reflected the light of the twin suns. High above, the banners of the Empire waved proudly, showing the symbol of the all-seeing star. The Emperor's image appeared on the main holoscreen, a tall figure wrapped in royal armor. Admiral Karath, the Emperor's voice rumbled, you encountered an unknown species calling themselves humans. Explain. Karath bowed slightly. Yes, Majesty. They appeared at the border of Sector 92. Their ships entered without permission. I demanded surrender. Instead, they responded, strangely, how strangely? Asked the Emperor. They laughed, Karath said flatly. They made jokes about the Empire, about me, and about war itself. They claimed they traveled millions of light years, and they refused inspection. The council murmured among themselves. Some laughed softly, thinking it must be a trick. Others looked uneasy. Do they possess advanced weapons? The Emperor asked. Not by our standards, Karath replied. Their ships have no plasma cannons or quantum shields. But they are resilient. Their hulls can endure strange radiation. Their drives use an unknown system that allows extreme long-distance travel. Primitive and yet bold, muttered High Commander Zoros. Perhaps they are insane. Perhaps, Karoth agreed. But I sense something different. They are not driven by fear. The Emperor leaned forward. No fear. Every race fears the Empire. That is what troubles me, said Karoth quietly. They looked at our fleet as if it were a challenge, not a threat. They smiled. They laughed. The council fell silent again. In a galaxy ruled by power, laughter in the face of strength was unheard of. The Emperor finally spoke. You will study them further, observe their behavior. But remember, if they pose a threat, eliminate them. Karoth bowed. Understood, Majesty. Back in Sector 92, the human fleet floated peacefully near a small, quiet moon. Their ships glimmered under the weak light of a nearby star. Captain Aaron Wells sat in his chair, drinking from a metal cup. Still no response from the Empire? He asked. His communications officer smiled. No, sir. I think we left them speechless, Wells chuckled. Good. Maybe that'll buy us some time to figure out what they really are. Beside him, Commander Lee frowned at the sensor display. They're scanning us constantly. Every few minutes I can feel their eyes watching. That's fine, Wells said. Let them watch. Maybe they'll learn something. What if they decide to attack? Lee asked. Wells took a slow sip and smiled. Then we'll do what humans always do when someone stronger shows up. Lee raised an eyebrow. Which is? Laugh first, Wells said, then improvise. The bridge crew laughed quietly. Even in deep space, surrounded by unknown dangers, humor was their shield. It wasn't arrogance, it was survival. Meanwhile, on the Varnus's Glory, Admiral Karoth observed the human fleet through the main viewport. For 3 days, the humans had done nothing aggressive. No weapon locks, no fleet movements, no sign of retreat. They simply stayed. Calm. Confident. The science officer turned to him. Admiral, I believe they are not preparing for battle. Then what are they doing? Talking, the officer said. Their transmissions are full of voices, laughter, songs, conversations about strange things. Food, animals, even something called sports. Karoth frowned. Sports? What kind of weapon is that? The officer hesitated. Not a weapon, sir. It appears to be a game. Karoth's confusion deepened. They are surrounded by warships and they play games. Yes, Admiral. Karoth leaned back in his command chair. Never in all his years had he seen such behavior. Strange creatures, he murmured. Later that cycle, he decided to open communication again. The human captain appeared on the screen, smiling as always. Ah, Admiral Serious Face, Wells said cheerfully. Good to see you again. Did the council like our jokes? Karoth blinked slowly. You knew I reported to them? Of course, Wells replied. We studied your transmission waves. You have a nice empire, very shiny. I bet your engineers are proud. Karoth ignored the comment. Captain Wells, the Emperor himself has ordered me to understand your purpose. Why have you come here? I already told you, said Wells. We're explorers. We follow signals, stories, mysteries. The galaxy is big, too big to stay home. Karoth crossed his arms. And when you meet a powerful empire, you simply laugh. Wells smiled again. We laugh when we're nervous. We laugh when we're scared. And sometimes we laugh just because it helps us think clearly. Karoth tilted his head. You admit fear, yet you laugh? That's right, Wells said softly. Fear isn't shameful. It reminds us we're alive. But laughter keeps us moving. For the first time, Karoth didn't have an immediate answer. In the Empire, fear was control. Citizens feared commanders. Commanders feared admirals. Admirals feared the Emperor. But this human, while he didn't hide from fear, he accepted it. He even made it sound useful. Karoth broke the silence. Your philosophy is illogical. Strength rules the galaxy, not laughter. Maybe, Wells said, but strength fades. Laughter lasts. The line went quiet for a moment. Karoth found himself almost smiling, something he had not done in years. He quickly ended the transmission before his crew could notice. The next day, something unexpected happened. A group of smaller Imperial ships attempted to approach the humans secretly for closer inspection. They cloaked their signatures and moved slowly through asteroid debris. But before they could reach scanning range, the humans sent a message across all frequencies. Hey, Empire friends, said a friendly voice. If you wanted a tour, you could have just asked. The hidden Imperial ships froze. Their cloaks were still active. There was no way the humans could see them. And yet they had. Karath received the report instantly. They detected you? Yes, Admiral, came the nervous reply. They are tracking us perfectly. We don't know how. Karath stared at the data feed. So they hide their strength behind laughter, he whispered. He ordered all ships to withdraw. He needed to think. Meanwhile, inside the human ship Valiant Star, Captain Wells leaned back, watching the Imperial vessels retreat. You see? He said to Commander Lee. They think we're simple, but they don't realize humans don't stop learning. We watch, we adapt, we play dumb until it's time not to. Lee grinned. So what's next? Wells looked at the stars. Next, we show them something they've never seen. Not weapons, not power, but cooperation. Let's teach them about friendship before they try to conquer us. Back in the Imperial Citadel, messages from Admiral Karath arrived. Reports about human laughter, strange readings, and impossible detection capabilities filled the data files. The Council was confused and divided. Impossible, said High Commander Zoros. Their technology cannot be superior. Then explain their sensors, Karath replied through holocall. Explain how they can detect cloaked ships. Explain how their laughter spreads calm instead of panic. The Emperor remained silent for a long moment before speaking. Perhaps they are more dangerous than they appear. Karath nodded slowly. Perhaps, but not because of their weapons. Because of their hearts. In the human fleet, the crew gathered in the common hall. They watched recordings of Imperial messages and laughed together. Wells stood among them, smiling. They think laughter is weakness, he said. But one day they'll understand laughter is hope. And hope is something no empire can rule forever. The crew cheered, raising cups of recycled water and toasting to the stars. For now, they were just explorers. But unknowingly, they had already shaken the foundation of a mighty empire. Not with force, not with fire, but with something far simpler, the courage to laugh in the face of power. The Galactic Empire was built on fear, obedience, and pride. For thousands of years, those three things kept it strong. But now, at the edge of Sector 92, one human fleet, small and strange, had begun to shake that mighty foundation. Admiral Karath had spent his entire life believing that power was everything. The strong ruled, the weak obeyed, and the galaxy followed this law without question. Yet the humans had entered his borders, looked at his warships and laughed. And somehow they had not been destroyed. Days turned into weeks. The humans still did not attack or retreat. They stayed near the same quiet moon, sending signals of music, laughter, and messages that made no sense to Imperial officers. On the bridge of the Varnus Glory, the atmosphere was tense. Admiral, said the communications officer, we received another transmission from the human fleet. Karath's tail twitched slightly. Put it through. The screen flickered to life, showing Captain Aaron Wells once again. His hair looked slightly messier than before, and he was holding a strange round object in his hand. Hello again, Admiral Serious Face, Wells said with a grin. Do you know what this is? Karath frowned. A weapon? Wells laughed. No, it's a ball. We use it for games. You throw it, catch it, sometimes kick it. Simple fun. Ever tried? Karath blinked. Games? What purpose does that serve? It makes people happy, Wells said. Helps them bond. You should try it. Maybe your crew would smile for once. Karath's eyes narrowed. My crew does not need such distractions. Maybe not, Wells replied, tossing the ball in the air. But I bet they'd like to laugh. Even powerful people need to breathe, Admiral. Then, before Karath could reply, Wells smiled and said, Anyway, we'd like to invite one of your ships to visit ours. No weapons, just a friendly exchange. You can see who we are for yourself. The bridge fell silent. The offer was bold, perhaps foolish. But something in Wells's calm voice made Karath hesitate. His science officer whispered, Admiral, this could be a trap. Karath agreed, yet part of him felt curious. And if it is not? He said quietly. He stared at the screen for a long time before giving his answer. Very well, Captain Wells, I will send a small shuttle under my supervision. Wells smiled brightly. Perfect. We'll prepare the coffee. Coffee? Karath asked, confused. Wells only grinned. You'll see. Later, a small Imperial shuttle departed from the flagship and crossed the quiet space between the two fleets. Inside, Admiral Karath and two guards watched the human ships grow larger on the screen. Their hulls were rough and imperfect, but their lights glowed warmly, not cold like Imperial designs. It felt welcoming. The shuttle entered a hangar bay on the human flagship Valiant Star. The doors closed, and atmosphere returned. Karath stepped out carefully, his scaled feet clicking on the metal floor. A group of humans waited and was smiling. They looked smaller than Imperial soldiers, their skins soft and pale, but their eyes bright and curious. Captain Wells stepped forward, holding 2 cups in his hands. "Welcome aboard, Admiral. Here, this is coffee, one of our best inventions." Karath looked at the steaming cup suspiciously. "Is it safe?" Wells chuckled. "If it can wake me up every morning, it's safe." Karath took a cautious sip. The taste was bitter but strangely pleasant. Warmth spread through him. "Interesting," he said softly. Wells smiled. "We humans like to start peace talks with something warm." They walked together through the ship. Karath expected to see soldiers standing at attention, but instead he saw laughter, small decorations, and people working with quiet focus. There was no fear here, only a strange calm. "What do you think?" Wells asked. Karath looked around. "Your ship lacks discipline." "Maybe," Wells said, "but it has heart." They entered a wide room filled with screens showing stars, planets, and bright lines of data. Humans were talking, typing, laughing softly as they worked. Karath stopped at one of the screens. "You're studying that rift near the border," he said. "Yes," Wells replied. "That's why we came. It's not just a rift, and it's something alive." Karath turned sharply. "Alive? That's impossible." "Maybe not for us," Wells said. "We found patterns, like breathing. Something inside the rift is moving, watching, maybe even thinking." Karath stared at the data. If what Wells said was true, this discovery was beyond anything the Empire had seen. "You came here to study this creature?" Karath asked. Wells nodded. "Not to fight, not to conquer. Just to understand." "That's what explorers do." Karath stayed silent. The Empire's explorers only searched for resources or enemies. The idea of exploring to understand was foreign to him. Then a soft alarm beeped. One of the human officers turned. "Captain, the rift is changing. Energy spike detected." Wells moved quickly to the console. "Put it on screen." A huge swirl of light appeared in space outside. The rift pulsed, glowing brighter with each second. Then, without warning, a shockwave burst from it, spreading in all directions. "Shields up." Wells shouted. The ship trembled, but the shields held. Karath felt the vibration even through the deck. "What was that?" "The rift is unstable," Wells said. "It reacts to energy. If someone near it powers up weapons, it grows angry." Karath's eyes widened. "Angry, you mean?" "Yes," Wells said quietly. "It can feel." The Admiral stood still, his mind racing. An energy being that could sense aggression. If true, this could change everything. "Admiral," Wells said gently, "we believe the Empire's patrols near the rift are making it worse. Your ship's weapons are waking it up. If it grows stronger, it might tear space apart." Karath's instincts screamed denial, but logic whispered caution. He had seen too much today to dismiss human words. "You asked me to order Imperial ships to stand down," he said slowly. Wells nodded. "Yes, just until we can calm the rift. We've been studying it for months. We think it responds to emotion, and peace makes it quiet. Fear or anger makes it violent." Karath looked at him sharply. "Emotion? You're telling me laughter can stop a space anomaly?" Wells smiled. "Maybe not stop it, but it helps. The rift echoes energy and emotion. When we laugh, it softens. When we fight, it grows." The Admiral shook his head. "That makes no sense." "Maybe not to you," Wells said, "but it's worth a try. You saw what happened when your fleet powered weapons last time." Karath said nothing. The blast had been strong enough to disable one of his cruisers temporarily. He finally nodded. "Very well. I will order my fleet to hold fire. But if you are lying, human, I will end this alliance myself." Wells grinned. "Fair enough, Admiral, serious face. Let's save the galaxy first, argue later." Back on the Varnus's glory, Imperial officers stared at their screens as the Admiral's command came through. "All ships stand down," Karath ordered. "No weapons, no power-ups near the rift." "Admiral, are you sure?" one officer asked. Karath's eyes glowed coldly. "That's an order." The fleet went silent. Across space, the human ships began to broadcast gentle sound waves. Soft music mixed with laughter and rhythm. The energy patterns on the rift screen began to slow, glowing less violently. The officers gasped. "Admiral, the readings are stabilizing." Karoth stared in disbelief. "It's responding." He realized what that meant. The humans were right. For the first time in his career, Karoth felt something deep in his chest. Not pride, not anger, but respect. He opened a channel to the human flagship. "Captain Wells, the readings are real. The rift is calming." Wells smiled from his chair. "See? Sometimes laughter is stronger than fear." Karoth didn't smile, but his voice softened slightly. "Perhaps. But this lesson will be difficult for my people." "Then let's teach them," Wells said. "Together." Karoth looked at him, and for the first time he nodded not as a conqueror but as an equal. Outside, the rift pulsed gently like a heartbeat, no longer angry. The stars shone brighter, and for a brief moment, both fleets, human and Imperial, stood together in quiet peace. Far away in the heart of the Empire, no one yet knew that a single meeting, a single laugh, and a single act of trust had begun to change everything. For the first time in the long history of the Galactic Empire, its mighty fleets had lowered their weapons, not out of defeat, but out of trust. Trust in a small group of humans who believed laughter could calm a cosmic storm. At first, many Imperial officers whispered that their admiral had gone mad. But as the days passed, the strange truth became impossible to ignore. The rift, which had once pulsed like a raging heart, was now quieter. The light that had threatened to tear space apart was dimming slowly, breathing like a living thing finding rest. And every time the humans played music or laughed through their transmissions, the readings improved. Admiral Karoth stood silently on the bridge of his flagship Varna's Glory, staring at the display. The rift's glow reflected in his golden eyes. "Report," he said softly. The science officer turned, awe in her voice. "The energy level has dropped by 40%. The radiation storm has stabilized." "Admiral, it's working." Karoth nodded slowly. "And the humans?" "They continue transmitting the same emotional frequencies, sir. Songs, voices, and something called stand-up comedy." "Comedy?" Karoth asked. "Yes, Admiral. It seems to be intentional humor." Karoth almost smiled. "These humans continue to surprise me." On board the Valiant Star, Captain Aaron Wells was walking through the ship's main observation deck. Around him, his crew worked in quiet excitement. The large viewing window showed the Imperial fleet in perfect formation. Thousands of ships that once aimed weapons at them, now standing peacefully side by side. "Captain," said Commander Lee, joining him, "the energy readings are dropping faster than expected. The rift is healing." Wells nodded, sipping from a steaming cup. "Good, that means the Admiral kept his promise." "He did," Lee agreed. "But there's something else. Imperial communications across other sectors are increasing. I think their high command is starting to notice." Wells looked out at the stars. "I figured as much. Empires don't like change, Commander, especially when it comes with laughter." Lee sighed. "Do you think they'll listen to reason?" Wells smiled faintly. "Maybe not yet. But sometimes one brave mind is enough to start a storm." In the Imperial Citadel, far from the border, the Council of Commanders gathered once again. Their voices filled the grand chamber like thunder. "Madness," shouted High Commander Zoros. "Admiral Karoth has lost his senses. He has allowed alien creatures to influence our fleet." Another commander pounded the table. "Lowering weapons in the presence of an unknown species, it is a disgrace." The Emperor sat quietly at the head of the chamber, his eyes deep and unreadable. "And yet," he said at last, "the Admiral's actions prevented the destruction of half a sector. Our own scans confirm it." "The rift is stabilizing," Zoros growled. "We cannot allow this infection of weakness to spread." "What happens when our soldiers start to believe in laughter instead of discipline?" The Emperor stood. His voice was calm but powerful. "Perhaps discipline is not the only path to strength." The room fell silent. He looked toward the glowing map of the galaxy projected before them. "Admiral Karoth may have found something valuable, something the Empire has forgotten. Send an observer to Sector 92. I will decide after seeing it myself." Back near the rift, Karoth and Wells continued to work side by side, monitoring the strange energy patterns. Over time, their conversations became easier, their tones more friendly. One cycle, as they stood together in the human observation deck, Karoth spoke quietly. Your people, they are not afraid of us. Why? Wells leaned against the rail. We used to be afraid of everything, the dark, the unknown, even ourselves. But over time, we learned something. Fear doesn't disappear when you hide from it. It disappears when you face it, and sometimes when you laugh at it. Karoth turned to him. You laugh to fight fear. Wells nodded. Exactly. The Admiral looked out the window, thoughtful. In the Empire, we use fear to control. It keeps order. And does it bring happiness? Wells asked softly. Karoth said nothing. The stars outside twinkled silently as if listening. Later that day, a new ship entered the system, and sleek, black, and marked with the golden emblem of the Imperial throne. The communications officer on the Varnus's glory stiffened. Admiral, incoming transmission from the Imperial Citadel. It's the Emperor. Karoth straightened his uniform. Put it through. The Emperor's image appeared, his voice deep and commanding. Admiral Karoth, I am arriving in person to inspect this operation. You will prepare for my arrival. Karoth bowed. As you command, Majesty. The signal ended. The entire fleet fell into perfect order. Even the human crew sensed the shift. When Wells heard the news, he simply nodded. The Emperor himself, huh? Well, that should be interesting. Lee frowned. He's not coming for a friendly chat, Captain. You know that. Of course, Wells said lightly, but we'll give him one anyway. A few hours later, the Emperor's personal battleship, Eternal Flame, appeared in orbit. Its size dwarfed everything around it. Even the Imperial flagships looked small beside it. Its presence was like a shadow of power spreading across the stars. Karoth stood at attention as the Emperor arrived on his ship. The ruler's armor shimmered like molten gold, and his gaze was as sharp as a blade. Admiral, the Emperor said, take me to this rift. I wish to see the humans and their work. Yes, Majesty. They walked through the corridors until they reached the main observation deck. Outside, the rift shone softly, glowing in peaceful waves. And beyond it, the human fleet floated calmly, lights blinking like gentle stars. The Emperor studied the view. Impressive, he murmured. So this is the anomaly that threatened our borders. Yes, Majesty, Karoth said. And those are the humans who discovered how to calm it. The Emperor's gaze turned to him. With laughter, I am told? Karoth nodded. It seems to respond to emotion. Their laughter and music create harmony. Aggression fuels it. Peace quiets it. The Emperor looked again at the screen. Strange creatures. Invite their leader aboard. Karoth sent the signal. Moments later, a human shuttle approached. Captain Wells stepped out, dressed neatly. His usual easy smile on his face, he bowed slightly. Your Majesty, an honor. The Emperor studied him in silence. You are smaller than I expected. Wells chuckled softly. I get that a lot. Karoth's guard stiffened, but the Emperor raised a hand. You dare laugh before the Emperor? Only because I'm nervous, Wells replied gently. It's how humans keep from shaking. The Emperor watched him carefully. Then, to everyone's surprise, a small smile crossed his face, brief but real. Interesting creature, he said. You claim laughter can bring peace. Show me. Wells nodded. Gladly. Follow me. The Emperor, Karoth, and a few guards boarded the human ship Valiant Star. The crew greeted them with polite smiles and curious eyes. Wells led them to the observation chamber where recordings of laughter and soft music played through the air. He pointed to the large window, where the rift's glow shimmered in rhythm with the sound. Watch closely, Wells said. As the music continued, the rift's light softened, its chaotic waves turning gentle. The Emperor stared silently, then spoke. It truly responds. Yes, Wells said. It feels what we send out. It's like the universe itself has emotions, and it mirrors ours. The Emperor remained quiet for a long time. Then he asked, And what happens when we send anger? Wells gave a small signal. The crew turned off the music and activated a low-level energy pulse. The rift's glow changed instantly, brightening, twisting violently, sending a faint tremor through the hull. Enough, the Emperor commanded. The sound stopped. The rift slowly calmed again. Wells looked at him. That's what we've been trying to tell you, Your Majesty. The galaxy doesn't need more fear. It needs more laughter. The Emperor turned to Admiral Karoth. And you believe this, Admiral? Karoth met his gaze. I have seen it with my own eyes. The humans are not our enemies. They might be our teachers. For a moment, no one spoke. Then the Emperor nodded slowly. Perhaps the Empire has grown too old, too proud. Perhaps it is time to listen. Wells smiled warmly. That's the first step, Your Majesty. Listening always comes before laughter. The Emperor almost smiled again. We shall see, human. We shall see. That night, for the first time in history, Imperial officers and human explorers shared a meal aboard the Valiant Star. The air was filled with quiet talk, soft music, and yes, a few shy laughs. And far beyond them, the rift glowed gently as if smiling too. The galaxy had begun to change, not through war, not through conquest, but through understanding. For the first time, the Galactic Empire had met something it could not control, and something it no longer wished to destroy. The Galactic Empire had always believed that power alone ruled the stars. Its fleets, its armies, its influence stretched across countless worlds. Fear and obedience were the tools of control, and pride was its armor. Yet here, on the edge of Sector 92, all of that certainty was being tested by a small fleet of human ships. Ships that laughed, ships that played music, ships that had no weapons worthy of the Empire's standards, and yet somehow, they had changed everything. The Emperor returned to the observation deck of the Varnus's Glory, standing beside Admiral Karath and watching the humans work in quiet focus. Captain Wells moved among his crew with ease, explaining tasks, adjusting controls, and occasionally laughing at small mistakes or clever jokes. The Emperor's expression was unreadable at first, but slowly, a faint smile appeared. They are different, he said quietly. Karath nodded.
Yes, Majesty.
They do not fear us. They do not bow. They do not hide. And yet they are not dangerous in the way we expected. Their strength is unusual. The Emperor's gaze returned to the rift. The swirling energy now pulsed gently, no longer chaotic or threatening. I have spent centuries controlling others. But these humans, they control nothing. Yet they have calmed a force I could not even touch. They are remarkable. Wells approached, smiling politely. Your Majesty, if I may. The Emperor waved him on. Speak. Wells bowed slightly. The galaxy responds to courage, not just weapons. Fear feeds violence. Laughter feeds hope. That is what we discovered with the rift. If the Empire listens, it can change too. The Emperor regarded him for a long moment. You claim that simple joy can influence something as vast as a space anomaly? Yes, Majesty, Wells replied. Not all power comes from destruction. Sometimes the strongest force is understanding and hope. The Emperor looked at Admiral Karath. Do you trust this human? Karath hesitated. Then he nodded. I do, Majesty. He has proven himself. His people have proven themselves. I believe we can learn from them. The Emperor turned back to the rift, watching the gentle waves of light pulse in rhythm with the music playing from the human ships. He realized something he had never admitted before. The galaxy could not be ruled by fear alone. There was a different kind of strength, quiet yet profound, and he was witnessing it for the first time. In the days that followed, Imperial ships maintained their positions but began to cooperate more openly with the humans. Small joint missions were planned, not for war but for study. Imperial scientists, engineers, and explorers came aboard human vessels, learning about their technology, their methods, and their curious ways of combining discipline with laughter. On board the Valiant Star, Captain Wells guided a group of Imperial engineers through the ship's engine room. See this? He said, pointing to the strange propulsion system. It looks simple, but it can survive conditions your engineers said were impossible. One of the Imperial engineers frowned. This is illogical. According to our calculations, the hull should have been destroyed by radiation decades ago. Wells smiled. It survived because we designed for adaptation, not perfection. Humans rely on creativity, intuition, and sometimes stubbornness. The engineer shook his head, amazed. And the Admiral allows this cooperation? Karath, standing nearby, said simply, It works. That is enough for me. Meanwhile, the Emperor remained aboard the Varnus's Glory, observing quietly. He did not often participate in small talk, but he listened to the humans and their laughter. Something about it made him consider what leadership truly meant. Fear could maintain order, but joy, courage, and hope could inspire loyalty. The kind of loyalty that weapons alone could never achieve. One evening, Wells invited the Emperor to see a human tradition. A small group of humans gathered in the recreation deck, passing a glowing ball back and forth, laughing as they competed. Your Majesty, Wells said, this is called a game. It builds trust, coordination, and teamwork. Sometimes it's simply for fun. The Emperor watched quietly as humans ran, dodged, and cheered. At first he felt nothing. Then slowly he realized he was smiling. Not a polite smile, not one demanded by duty, but a genuine one. "Perhaps there is wisdom here," he said softly. Wells bowed. "Sometimes, Majesty. Laughter is the teacher." As cooperation increased, the rift stabilized completely. No longer did it pulse violently or emit dangerous energy. Its glow was calm, gentle, and almost beautiful. Imperial and human crews worked together to place sensors, analyze readings, and record data. The rift became a symbol, a reminder that courage and collaboration could overcome even the most unpredictable dangers. Even the Empire's soldiers began to change. Guards who had once been rigid and fearful started smiling when humans told stories or jokes. Scientists once obsessed with control began experimenting with humor and creativity as part of their work. And slowly, the rigid structure of the Empire began to bend, not break, under the influence of something the humans called joy. One day, as the fleets drifted peacefully, an alarm sounded. A small asteroid had entered the area near the rift, threatening to destabilize it again. "Prepare weapons," the Imperial officer ordered. Karath held up his hand. "Wait, let the humans handle it first." Wells stepped forward. "We'll do it, but not with weapons." He instructed his crew to emit a series of harmonic frequencies. Vibrations, music, and laughter broadcast across the rift. The asteroid trembled as if responding to the energy, its trajectory subtly shifting. Slowly it moved away from the rift without a single shot being fired. The Imperial officers stared in astonishment. Karath's tail twitched. "It's working," Wells smiled. "Sometimes force isn't needed. Sometimes understanding is enough." Even the Emperor nodded, impressed. "Remarkable. Truly remarkable." By the end of the cycle, the humans had gained the respect of the Empire. The Emperor himself addressed both fleets. "Admiral Karath, Captain Wells, and all present," he said. "You have shown me that strength is not only measured by firepower or conquest. You have shown that courage, creativity, and even laughter can influence the galaxy in ways I never imagined. The Empire will remember this lesson." Wells bowed slightly. "Thank you, Your Majesty. We only hope to share it with all who are willing to learn." The Emperor turned to Karath. "Maintain cooperation with these humans. Learn from them. Let the galaxy grow stronger not through fear, but through understanding and hope." Karath's heart, long armored in duty and pride, felt lighter. He nodded firmly.
"Yes, Majesty."
"It shall be so." As the humans prepared to continue their exploration, Captain Wells looked at his crew. "Well, friends," he said, "we've done more than survive. We've changed history." Commander Lee grinned. "And we did it without firing a single weapon." Wells laughed. "That's the best part. Remember, courage can take many forms, and sometimes the simplest weapon of all is a smile." The human crew laughed together, their voices bright and full of life. Outside, the stars shone in perfect silence and the rift glowed calmly as if it, too, was laughing. The Imperial fleet watched in awe, no longer seeing enemies but partners. They had learned something no battle could ever teach them. That strength could be measured not only in power but in resilience, creativity, and joy. And far across the galaxy, the Empire began to shift. Not overnight, but slowly, quietly as the seeds of laughter, understanding, and hope took root. The humans, small in number but immense in spirit, had done what no one else could. They had faced the greatest empire in the galaxy, and met it with laughter, and the galaxy would never be the same again.